This story is about Kazuma, a loser otaku who is obsessed with adult games and manga. And even while in class, all the guy thinks about is getting home to play his eroge games. But his childhood friend, a beauty with gigantic milky tanks, always comes over to disturb him and tries to stop him from having those goonery thoughts. Everyone in class is still surprised by how Kazuma, a lonely idiot, managed to be friends with a beauty like Ruri. But despite being friends, Ruri dislikes the fact that Kazuma is a creep whose only hobbies are playing freaky games and watching spicy anime. So she does her best to invite him to karaoke with her instead. But Kazuma refuses, using the excuse that the only songs he can sing are Bang Bros theme songs. Hearing this, Ruri frees in disgust and immediately starts roasting his miserable life until Kazuma can't take the insults anymore and reluctantly agrees to accompany her to karaoke, which makes Ruri light up instantly. But just as they start making plans for the karaoke, someone interrupts them by calling out Kazuma's name. Kazuma and Ruri turn around immediately, and to their greatest shock, they see Mizuki, the prettiest and most academically successful baddie in school. Mizuki softly asks Kazuma if he's going to the karaoke bar after school, but Kazuma freezes. His palms are sweaty, his knees weak, his arms heavy, as he is unable to believe that the school cutie is actually talking to an insignificant roach like him. Mizuki mistakes his silence for disgust and immediately apologizes for eavesdropping on their conversation, while Ruri sees how awkward things have become and quickly takes her leave. Once she's gone, Mizuki steps closer to Kazuma and asks if he and Ruri are dating. Kazuma almost suffers a cardiac arrest from the sudden closeness and the question itself. Still, he manages to regain his composure and desperately denies dating Ruri, insisting there is no relationship whatsoever. When Mizuki then asks why he and Ruri are always together like a couple, Kazuma nervously explains that he and Ruri have known each other for a very long time, and then asks why Mizuki suddenly has an interest in him, since they've never talked to each other before. Just as Mizuki tries to explain herself, the teacher enters the classroom, forcing her to postpone her explanation later. After school, Kazuma hurriedly tries to leave so he can go home and play his favorite games, but he bumps into Mizuki in the hallway, who gives him a cold, unreadable stare. Kazuma quickly figures she must be pissed at him for trying to leave even though they had planned to meet after school, so he apologizes, but Mizuki doesn't say a word. She simply hands him a paper bag, explaining that a senior asked her to give it to him. Kazuma awkwardly thanks her and takes the bag, but the moment he looks inside, he realizes it contains one of his naughty games, the one he had forgotten in the club room earlier. This terrifies him, because he immediately assumes that if Mizuki sees the game, she'll instantly start viewing him as a complete degenerate. So he decides to head home as quickly as possible before she notices anything. But just as he takes a step forward, the strap of the paper bag snaps, and the game slips out onto the floor. Kazuma starts freaking out internally, sweating profusely like a broken faucet. But then Mizuki helps him pick up the game, and when she realizes it's an adult game, she quietly whispers that she has something she needs to tell him. Kazuma is already panicking, convinced she's about to judge him harshly, but instead, to his absolute shock, Mizuki tells him she wants to be his girlfriend. Kazuma blanks out completely, his brain unable to process what he just heard. When Kazuma nervously asks Mizuki to repeat what she just said, she somehow confuses him even more by asking if he would rather have her be his female swine instead. Confused, Kazuma stands there, unable to say a word, but Mizuki grows more embarrassed with every silence. When she can't contain the embarrassment anymore, she retreats and hides under one of the desks. However, in her frantic attempt to avoid being seen by Kazuma, she accidentally bumps her head against the desk. Kazuma immediately rushes to check if she's okay and suggests they go to the infirmary, but Mizuki, completely flustered, keeps insisting that she wants to be his slave or swine. Frustrated, Kazuma demands to know what the heck she's talking about, and that's when Mizuki takes a deep breath and finally explains that she wants him to conquer her heart, just like the girls in his games. Kazuma freezes, trying to process what she means, but then he notices that Mizuki is breathing heavily and her face is redder than a steamed crab. But before he can say a word, Mizuki bows and begs him to go out with her. This leaves Kazuma speechless as he struggles to understand why the school beauty, whom he has never spoken to before despite being in the same class, suddenly wants to go out with him. He reminds her that he's nothing but a useless otaku, and then asks if she isn't disgusted by the kind of games he plays. But Mizuki answers that she isn't, revealing that she's known about his freaky interests for a long time, and then reminds him that she's still waiting for his reply. Kazuma is still struggling to come to terms with everything happening, but when he sees how intensely Mizuki is blushing, he tells her that if she's okay with dating a degenerate loner like him, he wouldn't mind. Overwhelmed with excitement, Mizuki drops to the floor and then confirms for the second time if he's really willing to go out with her. Kazuma says yes, admitting that he had always found her cute anyway, and with this confirmation, Mizuki forces him to do a pinky promise with her and then says she looks forward to being with him. Later that day at home, Kazuma can't stop staring at Mizuki's number on his phone as everything still feels unreal, almost like he's dreaming. He freaks out, unable to believe he's actually someone's boyfriend now. And not just any girl's boyfriend, but Mizuki's, the hottest and smartest girl in school. The craziest part is that she was the one who confessed to him, and the thought alone sends butterflies racing through his stomach, making him ridiculously happy. But reality soon slaps him in the face when he remembers that he's completely clueless about dating. He has absolutely no idea what couples do, how they dress, or even how they're supposed to talk to each other. All his life, Kazuma has been a miserable loner whose social skills stopped downloading at 2%. So now he's stressed out, panicking over how to talk to his own girlfriend. Right in the middle of his mental breakdown, he gets a call from Ruri, but he ignores it, trying to focus on the problem at hand. Just then, his sister, Anki, barges into his room after her shower and immediately starts to tease him. Kazuma panics and tells her to get out, but Anki refuses, casually reminding him how close they were when they were younger. She quickly notices how unusually happy Kazuma looks that afternoon and doesn't stop teasing him until he finally cracks and tells her everything about what happened with Mizuki. But right in the middle of their conversation, Kazuma's phone suddenly vibrates, and Mizuki's name flashes across the screen, causing Kazuma to scream in pure panic. Nervously, he picks up the call and Mizuki on the other end asks if he'll be busy the following morning. Kazuma stammers a reply, saying he's just going to school. Mizuki says that's great and then suggests they walk to school together. Kazuma freezes, unable to respond, and Mizuki immediately assumes his silence means he doesn't want to walk with her. But Kazuma quickly reassures her that's not the case, saying he likes the idea and explaining that he's just shocked by how fast everything is happening. With that settled, Mizuki ends the call by saying they'll meet at the station at 7 a.m. the next morning, and Kazuma, sweating nervously, agrees. When the call ends, Kazuma's nerves go completely haywire, and his body trembles just thinking about walking to school with Mizuki the next morning. Still, he tries to boost his confidence by telling himself he can do this, and then resolves to use the opportunity to trigger events that will raise Mizuki's affection level for him. But the following morning, the sleepyhead oversleeps, wakes up late, and immediately rushes out of the house. By the time he finally reaches the station, panicking and out of breath, he spots Mizuki already there, waiting for him like a perfect girlfriend straight out of a rom-com. Kazuma is shocked when he realizes she isn't angry or bothered at all. Instead, she's casually eating meat buns like everything is completely fine. She greets him normally, and as Kazuma hurriedly tries to apologize for being late, she surprises him again by calmly using her handkerchief to wipe the sweat off his face. She points out how sweaty he is and then forgives him, saying that running all the way here makes it understandable. Meanwhile, Kazuma's heart is beating faster than a cheetah on steroids, but before he can say anything, Mizuki softly takes his hand, nearly causing him to convulse on the spot. As they walk while holding hands, Kazuma feels how soft Mizuki's palm is, and when he looks at her up close, he notices how smooth her skin is, like butter. Every step feels unnatural as he keeps reminding himself that this is Mizuki's hand, and this makes him want to hold hands with her forever. But suddenly, Mizuki goes completely silent for a moment with the same usual unreadable expression on her face, which completely throws Kazuma off. He starts wondering what must be running through her mind, but right then, Mizuki pauses and asks if he can accompany her somewhere. Kazuma agrees, and she leads him to a nearby park where she continues acting strangely, staring off blankly. But all of a sudden, she starts loosening her tie, saying it's the first time she's ever done something like this with a boy. Kazuma watches in shock, unsure how to react as the situation takes an unexpected turn. But Mizuki strips down to her plot armor while assuring herself, like a creep, that everything will be fine since she has studied properly about it. Before things spiral out of control, Kazuma freaks out and begs her to stop, but when she refuses, he looks away and shuts his eyes. Mizuki looks genuinely confused by how strongly he is reacting to seeing her underwear, so she grabs his hands and places them on her pom-poms. Still, Kazuma refuses to participate in her freaky play. This makes Masaki sad, and when the tension dies out, they sit on the bench where Mizuki explains that she had always thought he liked naughty things like this. But Kazuma, breathing hard, tells her that she misunderstood him, and Mizuki looks genuinely stunned to hear this. She then reminds him of his love for Eroge, hinting that this shouldn't be anything new to him. Kazuma admits that he does love Eroge, but quickly clarifies that they're all just fiction. He explains that Eroge isn't as indecent as people think, adding that the rated 18 label mostly comes from the way the characters dress. Kazuma gets carried away while explaining and goes on a passionate rant about Eroge culture, only stopping when he notices Mizuki staring at him like he's completely lost it. He immediately apologizes, saying he got carried away, but instead of being annoyed, Mizuki looks oddly fascinated, clearly rizzed up by his Eroge knowledge. She then begs him to teach her all about Eroge games properly, but Kazuma is completely taken aback, struggling to understand what she just said. Mizuki explains that she just wants to get closer to him and to understand the things he likes. The moment stretches painfully as Mizuki gazes at him with quiet determination and begs him again, while Kazuma can only stare in shock, drenching in sweat, totally confused. The next day in class, Mizuki meets up with Kazuma and apologizes for keeping him waiting. But Kazuma gets completely embarrassed when the whole class notices them together and starts gossiping, wondering what the school's resident loser has to do with the school beauty. Kazuma can't withstand the judgmental stares, so he pulls Mizuki out of the classroom and suggests that it might be better if they don't talk to each other during class to avoid too much attention. But Mizuki doesn't buy his crappy suggestion at all. She points out that they were already talking in class and insists that plenty of girls talk to guys, so it's not like what they're doing is some kind of abomination. When she also reminds him of how close he is with Ruri even during class, Kazuma sighs and gets defensive, explaining that Ruri is different because she's his childhood friend. Hearing Kazuma defend Ruri makes Mizuki visibly jealous. Kazuma notices her gloomy expression and asks if he said something to upset her, but Mizuki just shrugs it off, saying it's fine. Kazuma, being clueless to a girl's feelings, doesn't push the issue and simply suggests they hurry up to where he wants to show her. Kazuma then takes Mizuki to a secret room in the school, and once inside, he explains that it used to be reserved for club leaders, but regular members are allowed to use it now as well. But Mizuki, who is already having wild thoughts, gets shy being alone in such an enclosed space with Kazuma, and then awkwardly asks if it's really okay for them to do something naughty in a place like this. Kazuma freezes and immediately clarifies that's not why he brought her here. Instead, he pulls out a game disc and slots it into a laptop already sitting on the desk. Then he explains that he brought her to the private room so they could play one of his favorite Eroge game together. He tells her that the game they would be playing is called Final Molestation Bus, and then explains that the game is all about a freaky protagonist who rides in a bus and does naughty things with random chicks inside. Mizuki immediately gets interested in playing the game and says she would like to know more. But as she reads the game manual with keen interest, Kazuma notices that her mind and attention seems far away. Worried she might not like the game, he asks if she'd rather switch to another game. But Mizuki calmly tells him no, and then continues to fixate on the game manual. She is a little bit confused as to how the protagonist of the game is supposed to get freaky with the girls when there are other passengers inside the bus. So Kazuma awkwardly explains that the protagonist has some kind of special ability that creates a private space, letting him clap the girls peacefully without being noticed. Mizuki is too slow to grasp what he is talking about, so she struggles to piece the setting together, but then something else pops into her head. She recalls hearing that otaku usually have favorite waifu characters in the games they play, so she asks Kazuma what kind of waifu he likes. Kazuma is completely caught off guard by the question. When he hesitates and fails to answer, Mizuki immediately jumps to her own conclusion, teasing that he must like them thick. She mentions that he must like waifus with dairy jugs, which makes Kazuma embarrassingly begs her not to continue with the conversation. Mizuki, however, refuses to let it go and insists on knowing whether she fits the spec of waifu he likes. She tries to simplify it by asking if he likes her bust size, but the question nearly gives Kazuma a heart attack. He panics and desperately tries not to look at her, which Mizuki completely misunderstands. She takes his reaction the wrong way and starts talking down on herself, saying Kazuma doesn't like her because she has pimple-size oranges. Kazuma nervously tries to explain himself, but then decides against it and suggests they just start the game instead. The moment the game boots up, Mizuki immediately skips the introduction like it's a YouTube ad. But Kazuma quickly scolds her for that, explaining that since it's her first time playing, she should watch the opening video properly. Mizuki looks a little surprised, but doesn't argue, and instead, she immediately agrees to restart the game. Kazuma is taken aback by how quickly she gives in, but Mizuki calmly admits that she actually wants to watch the opening too. She says she wants to see it because Kazuma likes it. Hearing that excites Kazuma as he struggles to believe Mizuki wants to actually watch the video just because he does. A small, proud smile slips onto his face, relieved that things are going smoothly, especially after how nervous he'd been when Mizuki said she wanted to play a rogue game with him. But just as the opening video is about to start, Mizuki's stomach suddenly growls loudly, like a starving bear, surprising Kazuma and embarrassing Mizuki. An awkward silence follows until suddenly someone starts banging on the door of the secret room, startling both Kazuma and Mizuki. Kazuma immediately opens the door to check who it is, but he's stunned to find absolutely nobody outside. With that strange interruption, Kazuma and Mizuki decide to head home instead of continuing the game. On the way, Kazuma feels extremely nervous about the whole walking home together as a couple situation, and deep down, he keeps debating whether he should voice his concerns. But when he finally works up the courage to say something, Mizuki cuts him off, saying she wants them to take a detour before heading home. Kazuma awkwardly agrees, though he's still struggling to speak his mind. Then he suddenly realizes Mizuki is no longer walking beside him, and when he looks around, he spots her standing still, staring intently at an advertisement board promoting extra-large fluffy pancakes. Kazuma then approaches her and asks if she'd like to go in and buy some, but Mizuki shakes her head and refuses. When Kazuma asks why, she explains that she can't really talk properly while eating, and then adds that the reason she suggested the detour was because she wanted to know more about him. Kazuma immediately brightens at this and asks what she wants to know. In his mind, he's expecting simple questions, like his favorite food, but instead, he's completely caught off guard when Mizuki casually asks if he really likes girls with watermelons. Kazuma starts sweating nervously, and before he can answer, Mizuki continues, asking if he also likes girls who wear mini skirts, since she's noticed that many of the girls in his games wear short skirts. Kazuma is left speechless, desperately trying to figure out how to respond, but Mizuki quickly takes his silence as confirmation. She calls him an indecent creep, but then casually adds that she doesn't mind since he's her boyfriend anyway. The next day at school, Mizuki excitedly approaches Kazuma and asks if he notices anything different about her. Kazuma looks at her up close, but he honestly can't spot anything unusual. When he admits this, Mizuki immediately grows moody, making the situation awkward. Not wanting to upset her, Kazuma desperately tries again. He studies her hair, but it's styled the same way as yesterday. He looks over her uniform, which seems unchanged, and even notices she's wearing the same socks as always. Still, Mizuki looks disappointed that he failed to notice something different about her and quietly excuses herself, saying she's heading to class. As she walks ahead of him, Kazuma can't take his eyes off her, and while watching her leave, he feels certain there is something different about her, but he just can't put his finger on it. Suddenly, Ruri rushes down the stairs, shouting Kazuma's name. But the moment she gets down from the stairs, a heavy gust of wind blows up her short skirt, revealing her Victoria's Secret. Embarrassed, she immediately starts blaming Kazuma for her misfortune, and as Kazuma tries to defend himself, saying he is not to blame, the two starts to argue like annoying old couples. But just then, Masaki walks back to meet Kazuma, and that's when Kazuma finally realizes what is different about her, and that is she is putting on a very short skirt, not the usual one. Later that day in class, the literature teacher is going over the day's lesson when Mizuki raises her hand to ask a question. When she's called on, she stands up and begins speaking, but the teacher is struggling for his life, trying his best to control his freaky urges seeing how extremely short Mizuki's skirt is. When the teacher interrupts her to complain about her skirt length, Mizuki defends herself, claiming that it's the same skirt she's always worn. But the old man refuses to argue and just turns away from the temptation, choosing to avoid looking at her entirely and quickly moving on with the lesson. During lunch break, Kazuma rushes to find Mizuki and bluntly asks why she's dressed like an OnlyFans model. But Mizuki blushes and asks if dressed this way doesn't suit her. Kazuma nervously replies that whether it suits her isn't the point, and he just wants to know why she suddenly changed her style. Mizuki explains that she dressed this way because she thought he liked girls who wore shorter skirts. Kazuma freezes, unable to believe she is dressed this way because of him. His thoughts start spiraling as he struggles to believe that the most popular girl in school would actually shorten her skirt because of a Rizzless dork like him. He reasons that she must be doing all this just to make him like her more, but that only leaves him wondering why she's going to such lengths. When he asks if she isn't embarrassed dressing so boldly, Mizuki's face instantly turns red. She blushes hard and admits that she is embarrassed, but only if other guys are looking. She shyly adds that if it's just Kazuma seeing her like this, she doesn't mind at all. Seeing how cute she looks while saying this makes Kazuma lose a few brain cells. He almost feels like crying from happiness, because as a nerdy otaku, he never believed a day would come when a real girl would care about him this much. Flustered, he admits that he likes how she's dressed, but quickly adds that there's no way other people won't notice her too. Hearing this, Mizuki goes quiet for a moment. Then she softly asks if it would be okay if she dressed like this only when they're alone together, and Kazuma, breathing hard, tells her that he'd be completely fine with that. With that settled, Mizuki starts treating it like a full-time job to match the themes of the games they play together. Whenever they play something new, she finds a way to dress the part. One time they play a prison-themed game, so Mizuki dresses up with a choker around her neck to get chalked out. When they play a game where the heroine acts like an animal after being brainwashed, Mizuki also dresses like a cute cat girl. Kazuma enjoys her enthusiasm, but he's still surprised that a cutie like Mizuki can have such a bold, aggressive personality. He also enjoys all the flirting she throws his way, even if it sometimes feels like a bit too much for his virgin heart to handle. While he's lost in thought, Mizuki suddenly pops up behind him like a horror movie villain, scaring the life out of him. When he nervously asks what's gotten into her, Mizuki simply says there's somewhere she wants to take him. Kazuma is surprised, wondering what this place is, but then he notices Mizuki staring intensely at his rice balls like she hasn't eaten in days. So he offers her one, and she doesn't waste a second before taking a bite, happily complimenting how good it tastes. After that, she leads Kazuma toward the school gym storage area, where she suddenly stops at the entrance, turns to him, and asks if he remembers the game they played the day before. Turns out the errand game they played yesterday was all about different types of cute undies. Kazuma is already nervous, wondering what cosplaying nonsense his crazy girlfriend has in mind this time. And to his shock, Mizuki tells him that she is putting on a special type of peach cover and asks if he wants to take a look. Sweating nervously and panicking, Kazuma immediately refuses, but Mizuki grabs his hand and starts forcing him to touch her peaches, while assuring him that she gives him the consent to do that. She tells him he could just take a peek or touch it if he wants, but Kazuma declines. Luckily for him, Ruri catches them red-handed in the steamy act and immediately demands to know what the heck they are doing. Both Kazuma and Mizuki freezes when they see her, and Kazuma embarrassingly wants to know why she is there. But Ruri snaps like a jealous waifu and immediately grabs him by the tie, demanding to know what freaky things he is doing with another girl. But just then, a strong gust of wind blows and both Ruri and Mizuki's skirts goes up, revealing their cute G-strings. Later that day at home, Kazuma lies in bed, frustrated and still replaying the insane day he's had. Things somehow get even crazier when his sister, Enki, suddenly pounces on him, nearly suffocating him with her massive airbags while whining that she can't finish writing her draft. Apparently, Enki is a weirdo just like her brother. She writes novels aimed at otakus, and whenever she's working on her steamy manuscripts, she gets anxious and starts doing all kinds of nasty things. This time, she tells Kazuma that she needs him to buy her 2 big meat buns and red tampons to help her focus. Kazuma has no choice but to head to the supermarket, all while still bothered by Mizuki and why she's going this far with all the cosplaying just to please him. He racks his brain, trying to understand why Mizuki is acting like the relationship is so one-sided, like she's the only one doing all the work to keep things going. After getting the stuff Enki needs, Kazuma leaves the supermarket and heads back home. On the way, he bumps into none other than Ruri, who's still hung up on everything that happened earlier between him and Mizuki. She's clearly curious about what the heck is going on between the two of them. Ruri admits she's a little surprised by all of this, since Kazuma never used to talk to any girl besides her. Meanwhile, Kazuma is stuck in his own head, wondering if he should tell Ruri that he and Mizuki are dating. In the end, he decides against it, concluding that she's completely unreasonable and that her chicken brain would just jump straight to judging him anyway. But just then, Ruri accuses him of staring at her buns like a creep. But Kazuma immediately defends himself, saying that no real man with a functional pipe stick wouldn't at least take a peek at her top-tier bazongas or feel tempted around a cutie like her. Ruri instantly goes silent after hearing this and starts blushing uncontrollably. Kazuma notices her frozen there, and when he asks what's wrong, Ruri nervously blurts out that he just called her cute. Kazuma quickly tries to explain that he wasn't hitting on her or trying to be weird, but that only makes things more awkward, and soon enough, they're both blushing like idiots. However, out of nowhere, Ruri embarrassingly admits that she doesn't have a boyfriend. When Kazuma awkwardly asks why she doesn't have a guy, Ruri goes silent again, this time blushing even harder. After a moment, she finally opens up, shyly explaining that she doesn't have a boyfriend because she already has feelings for someone else. When Kazuma presses her and asks if he knows the guy she's crushing on, Ruri anxiously turns her face away and tells him to just forget everything she said. Then she walks away. Later that night, while in his room, Kazuma gets a call from Mizuki, apologizing for acting weird that day. Caught off guard by the unexpected apology, Kazuma tells her it's fine, but then admits he has a question that's been bothering him and that he needs to ask. Mizuki, on the other end of the line, calmly tells him to go ahead, and nervously, Kazuma asks why she's going to such extreme lengths for him. An awkward silence follows as Mizuki goes completely quiet after hearing the question. Thinking he might have gone too far, Kazuma panics and apologizes, saying it's fine if she doesn't want to answer. But Mizuki replies that she does want to answer, but then she wants him to promise not to laugh. Kazuma agrees, and Mizuki finally reveals that the reason she's been going overboard with all the cosplaying is because, strangely enough, she's jealous of Ruri. Kazuma is shocked to hear this, but Mizuki explains that she's always been jealous of the close relationship he has with Ruri and that she's long wanted to be like her. She further reveals that this is the reason she started researching Eroge in the first place, because she wants to be the ideal girl in Kazuma's eyes. She says she wants to be his #1 person. Kazuma listens quietly, but his mind is all over the place. Even though he's known Ruri all his life, and she's the closest person to him outside his family, he's never once considered her his #1 girl. With all these thoughts flooding his head, it feels like his heart is about to explode. He's nervous because he knows the person on the other end of the call is special, and if he's being honest with himself, she really is his #1. When Kazuma finally tells Mizuki that she's his #1, the call goes silent again, and the only thing he can hear is a heart beating 1,000,000 miles per second. After a few seconds, Mizuki thanks him and then ends the call. As Kazuma drops the phone, he feels relieved and strangely excited after calling Mizuki his #1, but soon he starts wondering if she's feeling the same happiness he is. The next day at school, Kazuma bumps into Mizuki in the hallway, and the tension from last night's call still lingers between them. Even so, they arrange to meet later at their usual secret club room to play Eroge games. So during the break that afternoon, Kazuma arrives at the club room first. He notices the door is unlocked and immediately assumes Mizuki must have arrived before him. However, the moment he steps inside, he freezes. Standing there waiting for him is Sasai, the club president, dressed in a naughty cosplay costume. Panicking, Kazuma immediately asks why she's dressed like that, and Sasai starts teasing him, asking why he keeps staring at her flat melons. Kazuma nervously tells her to hurry up and change before someone walks in. But Sasai just smirks and asks if by someone, he means the cute girl, hinting that she already knows Kazuma has been secretly bringing Mizuki into the club room this whole time. She then starts whining, saying that even though she'd done freaky things for him before, he still chose to toss her aside for this new chick. Right in the middle of the commotion, Mizuki walks in, and the room falls into an awkward silence. Kazuma immediately panics and rushes to explain to Mizuki that Sasai is the club president and his senior. But to his surprise, Mizuki already knows who Sas is and shyly greets her. After the greeting, Mizuki timidly hides behind Kazuma's back, which makes him turn and ask if she knows Sas. Shyly, Mizuki explains that she met Sasai once in the past, but before she can say more, Sasai cuts in. Sasai explains that Mizuki once came to the club for a tour, not to learn about the club's activities, but to spy on a certain someone. Hearing this, Mizuki gets so embarrassed that she buries her face into Kazuma's back in shame. Meanwhile, Kazuma is lost in thought, wondering if Mizuki might have learned about his love for Eroge games from Sasai. His thoughts are cut short when Sasai suddenly snaps him out of it, cheerfully saying she wants him to run an errand for her. Surprised, Kazuma asks what kind of errand she's talking about, and Sasai explains that she wants him to go to an Eroge game shop for her. She says the shop is holding a late-night opening sale for a new game called 6 Sisters. This game follows a protagonist who suddenly finds himself living with 6 freaky sisters, leading to all kinds of questionable situations every night. Kazuma immediately refuses and tells her to run the errand herself, but Sasai fires back with a ridiculous excuse, claiming it's her grandma's 101st birthday, so she can't go. Kazuma quickly shuts that down by reminding her of his age restrictions, which prevent him from buying Eroge games in stores and only allow him to get them through mail orders. But Sass tells him not to worry about that, assuring him that the shop doesn't even check ages. When Kazuma still refuses to budge, Sasai tries tempting him by wiggling her orange seeds. Unfortunately for her, that fails completely, because Kazuma is a seasoned milkman who prefers them full and bouncy. Realizing that won't work, Sasai switches tactics and offers to show him the limited edition of his favorite game, the passing shower doujin. This instantly breaks Kazuma's resolve, as Kazuma can't withstand the temptation of his own desires. After Sasai leaves the club room, Kazuma apologizes to Mizuki for the interruption, but Mizuki stays quiet, wearing a thoughtful expression. Kazuma is desperate to know what's on her mind, but after a brief, intense silence, Mizuki finally speaks. To his shock, she asks if she can accompany him to the game shop, and Kazuma freezes, completely unprepared for a request like that. That night at home, Kazuma gets ready to head out to the game shop, but his busty sister, Enki, immediately starts worrying about him going out so late at such an ungodly hour. She's even more concerned because the shop is usually filled with strange people, and she asks if he wants her to come along. Kazuma freezes, terrified that if his clingy sister finds out about his relationship with Mizuki, things will get messy fast. He refuses her offer but reassures her that he'll message her once he's done buying the game, and with that, he heads out. Kazuma is all fired up, because to him, this errand with Mizuki feels more like his first real date than just a simple task. When he finally arrives at the meeting spot, he nervously looks around for any sign of Mizuki. His mind completely blanks when he spots Mizuki, dressed so maturely that she doesn't look like a student at all. Mizuki notices him staring like an idiot and asks if she looks weird. Kazuma stammers, too flustered to get a word out, and when he finally regains his composure, he awkwardly compliments her, saying that the outfit suits her. The compliment makes Mizuki blush, and she thanks him, but deep down, Kazuma hates himself for not having the guts to tell her she's cute, which is what he really wanted to say. Not long after, they finally arrive at the shop, only to find it packed with otakus, all desperate to get their hands on the game. While waiting in line, Kazuma asks Mizuki if she informed her parents before leaving the house, and Mizuki tells him that Sasai had already called her family earlier to let them know. Kazuma then smiles shyly and tells her that his plan is to catch the last train, but that she can leave anytime if it gets too late. But Mizuki immediately refuses, insisting that she'll stick with him until the very end. She also casually mentions that she's already told her parents that if it gets too late, she'll be staying over at her senior's place, which completely catches Kazuma off guard. Several hours later, deep into the night, they finally manage to buy the game, but unfortunately they miss the last train. With nowhere else to spend the night, Kazuma suggests they look for shops that stay open overnight. Luckily, they spot an open manga cafe, and Kazuma quickly suggests they go inside. However, once he realizes how cramped the space is, Kazuma's blood pressure spikes, realizing he has to spend the night with Mizuki in there. He's completely confused, wondering what he's supposed to do in such a steamy situation with such a hot girl. His original plan was simple: buy the game, take the train home together like a normal couple, and then offer to escort her home like a gentleman. But fate clearly has other ideas. With his plans ruined, the only thing he can think of to avoid losing control of his urges is to get some sleep. When he casually mentions it, Mizuki frowns, then says that if that's what he wants, she'll respect his decision. However, she admits that if it were up to her, she'd rather stay up a little longer. Hearing this makes Kazuma start sweating uncontrollably, and it only gets worse when Mizuki moves closer to him. To his surprise, Mizuki suggests they play the game they bought that night, causing Kazuma to freeze on the spot. Noticing his shocked reaction, Mizuki immediately takes it back and suggests they just sleep instead. But Kazuma nervously tells her it's fine, then pulls the game out of the paper bag and starts installing it. He uses one of the computers in the store, and before the game starts, he shyly suggests that they plug in earphones so no one else can hear the soundtrack. Still, being this close to Mizuki is driving Kazuma insane. Seeing her up close, he notices how silky her hair looks, how her face seems smoother than before, and how she smells faintly of fresh mint. Their shoulders brush against each other, and the tension between them quietly builds. In that moment, Kazuma's thoughts start to drift, and he slips into his imagination, picturing a dreamlike Eroge-style scenario with Mizuki cast as the main heroine. Morning comes, and Kazuma somehow manages to fumble the easiest bag to clap. Nothing truly intimate happens between him and Mizuki, and the only reward he ends up with is accidentally getting a feel of her cheeks while they sleep. When Kazuma tries to get up from the floor, his movement causes Mizuki to shift, but she quickly falls back asleep. That peace doesn't last long, though, because her phone alarm suddenly rings out, startling Kazuma and waking Mizuki from her sweet sleep. But as she sits up, Kazuma nervously apologizes for disturbing her peaceful sleep, and then bolts to the toilet like a shy moron, leaving Mizuki sitting there totally confused about what the heck just happened. Meanwhile, locked inside the toilet, Kazuma is almost at the verge of losing his sanity. He starts thinking about everything that happened that night, how close he and Mizuki were, and the warmth he felt in his palms when he accidentally cupped her cheeks. Just replaying it all in his head nearly drives him insane. But before he can spiral any further, Mizuki knocks on the bathroom door, saying she wants to see him. When Kazuma finally steps out, he realizes she's still half asleep, barely standing, and looks like she's about to collapse at any moment. Kazuma immediately uses his body to shield her from landing to the floor, and then he gently tells her that it's about time they leave the store. Before long, Kazuma and Mizuki make it back outside, and being the overly careful boyfriend he is, Kazuma makes sure to escort her all the way home. But on his walk back to his own place, his thoughts start to spiral again. He feels strangely guilty, almost as if he and Mizuki had done something wrong during the night, even though he is too much of an innocent virgin for anything to happen. Somehow his mind drifts to Ruri, and he catches himself wondering if she's the type to wake up early in the morning the way Mizuki did. Shaking his head, Kazuma tries to brush those thoughts aside, convincing himself that his imagination is just running wild after a long night. Several days later, after the incident, Kazuma and Mizuki meet again at school. This time, Kazuma isn't as tense, having slowly gotten used to being around her. When he calmly asks what's up, Mizuki responds quietly, though her voice still carries a hint of nervousness. She clutches her bag tightly and asks if he'll be free that weekend. Kazuma, suddenly excited, replies that he's free as a bird. Still flustered and blushing hard, Mizuki then asks if he'd like to come over to her place that weekend. Kazuma freezes, completely caught off guard by the invitation. When he nervously asks why she wants him to come over, Mizuki shyly says she can't tell him the reason right now, but then says she hopes he can make it. Later that day at home, Kazuma is freaking out, his mind going wild just thinking about Mizuki inviting him over to her place. This is a whole new experience for him, since he's never been invited to a girl's place before. In his head, he starts cooking up scenarios of Mizuki wanting to introduce him to her parents as her boyfriend. The whole situation feels overwhelming for an ex-loner otaku like Kazuma, and the difficulty level is absurdly high. Desperate for a solution to his anxiety, Kazuma decides to consult ChatGPT for advice on what he's supposed to do on his first visit to his girlfriend's house. The results come back simple enough. Dress smartly, bring a nice gift, and get a decent haircut. The problem, however, is that Kazuma is broker than a street beggar and can't even afford a haircut. He briefly considers asking his mom for some cash, but quickly drops the idea, realizing no one would believe a shut-in loser like him is dating a hottie like Mizuki. When the weekend finally arrives, Kazuma has already borrowed money from his sister Enki to get a haircut, buy a decent gift, and pick up a nice hoodie. All that's left now is a smile. After Kazuma reaches the meeting spot, Mizuki arrives a little later and apologizes for keeping him waiting. Kazuma immediately gets distracted by how cute she looks and can't take his eyes off her, but Mizuki quickly suggests they get going. As they start walking, Kazuma's mind is already running wild, imagining some bizarre Eroge-style plot where they arrive at her house and a random serial assassin suddenly shows up, mouth stuffed with wasabi. When they arrive at Mizuki's house, Kazuma hands her the cake he bought and awkwardly asks if she doesn't mind sweet stuff. Mizuki says she doesn't mind at all and happily adds that she loves cakes. As she unwraps the gift, Kazuma notices her staring at it a little too intently. When he softly calls her name, Mizuki snaps out of it and quickly apologizes, saying it's nothing, before offering to make them some tea. Kazuma starts noticing just how spotlessly clean Mizuki's living room is, and simply sitting there makes him feel incredibly tense. Mizuki seems to pick up on this and casually mentions that her parents aren't home that day, clearly trying to ease his nerves. Kazuma is shocked to realize they're completely alone in the house. As the thought sinks in, he also notices that Mizuki has been gone for a while now, even though she said she was just going to make tea. Growing uneasy, Kazuma decides to check on her. That's when he spots Mizuki peeking through the door to her room. With a shaky voice, she explains that she just wanted to change her clothes and didn't expect it to take so long. Kazuma smiles sheepishly and tells her it's fine, but deep down, he's confused about why she suddenly felt the need to change her outfit. After she finishes changing, Mizuki suddenly steps out dressed like a maid straight out of a black and orange sight, and the sight of her sends Kazuma into a complete meltdown. Mizuki casually tells him that they've played this game before, reminding him that it's about a girl who needed to repay a loan and ended up being sold off to a nasty rich man. Still stuck in full panic mode, Kazuma nervously tells her that he remembers the game. He remembers how days ago he had shown Mizuki the instruction booklet, and how she'd commented back then that the game violated human rights. Yet now, here she is, cosplaying as the heroine, fully dressed as a maid. As the boyfriend of an extreme cosplayer, Kazuma is left completely speechless and clueless about how he's supposed to handle the situation. He tries his best not to look at her, but the temptation of seeing her in such a jizz-worthy outfit makes it impossible for any man to resist, not even the priest. In the end, Kazuma can't help but stare, all while desperately trying not to lose gallons. Suddenly, Mizuki gently takes his hand and tells him to sit down. She then heads to the kitchen, prepares some tea, places a slice of cake on the side, and serves it to Kazuma, fully committing to the role as his naughty maid. Kazuma completely freaks out and begs her not to take things to such an extreme, but his reaction only ends up making Mizuki look a little hurt. Still, she quickly cheers herself up and suggests that they just eat already. Then, out of nowhere, Mizuki tries to feed him the cake herself. Kazuma panics and awkwardly looks up, blurting out that he's just admiring the ceiling. Mizuki is clearly surprised by his reaction, but after a moment, she recalls a specific scene from the game she's cosplaying. Deciding to reenact it, she deliberately drops the cake onto her plump melons. The sight nearly gives Kazuma a heart attack, so he frantically apologizes and immediately bolts for the bathroom. Kazuma locks himself inside for a few minutes, trying desperately to calm down and regain his sanity. Eventually, though, he starts worrying that staying hidden too long might make Mizuki think he's avoiding her or doesn't want to see her, so he decides to head back out. Still, he finds it hard to believe that Mizuki would take her cosplaying obsession this far. After finally calming his nerves and his little Johnny, Kazuma takes a deep breath and nervously steps out of the bathroom. When he returns to the living room, he finds Mizuki sitting alone on the couch, wearing a gloomy expression. Kazuma sits down beside her and apologizes for running off to the bathroom like an insensitive jerk, but Mizuki calmly wants to know if she did something wrong. Kazuma quickly assures her that she didn't do anything wrong at all. Then, he awkwardly suggests that she should wash off the white cream on her chest and maybe change her stained outfit while she's at it. However, the moment Mizuki hears the word wash, her expression suddenly tightens. Her eyes lock onto him as if something just snapped in her head, which immediately sends a chill down Kazuma's spine. That's when Kazuma instantly remembers a scene from the game where, right after the nervous maid accidentally drops cake on her master, she's punished by being ordered to take a bath with him. Kazuma nervously reasons that his nutcase girlfriend might also try to reenact this part of the game too. But while he is thinking about it, Mizuki takes the cake and then suddenly pulls a crazy, unexpected move. She splashes the cream all over Kazuma's face, and while Kazuma struggles to see, Mizuki offers to take him to the toilet to also wash up. Once they get to the bathroom, Mizuki suddenly reaches for his zipper, sending Kazuma straight into panic mode. He immediately demands to know why she's trying to take his pants off when all he needs to do is wash his face. Mizuki explains, a little too seriously, that if she doesn't take it off, she won't be able to do it properly. But Kazuma, already having a nervous breakdown, wonders what the heck that thing is she is talking about. Mizuki then moves closer and tells him that if he insists on keeping his pants on, there's no way she can get the stain off his clothes. She leans in further and starts tugging at his hoodie, but Kazuma tries to stop her. Still, Mizuki insists, pointing out that there's more cream on his clothes than she expected. She reassures him that it won't take long and that she'll be done washing his clothes before he even finishes taking a shower. When Kazuma tries to hesitate again, Mizuki yells that she is responsible for getting her cream all over him, so it's her responsibility to clean it thoroughly. Kazuma finally gives in, but while taking a shower, he is having a mental breakdown just thinking about how he's using the same bathroom Mizuki does every day. But then he manages to get control over his freaky thoughts and decides to quickly wash up and leave not to torment himself any longer. Once he finishes rinsing off the frosting from his face and clothes, Kazuma steps out of the bathroom. But he immediately freezes when he sees Mizuki standing right outside the door, wrapped in a towel. Shaking nervously, Mizuki says she only came to help him clean up. But with Kazuma panicking and too shocked to say a word, Mizuki snaps, and with a shaky voice, she yells that since she was responsible for smearing him with the cake, she feels obligated to wash him up. As she starts moving towards Kazuma, Kazuma nervously begs her to chill and then quickly grabs the towel to cover up. But his naughty mind is already on overdrive, imagining freaky shower moments with Mizuki. Kazuma desperately tries to control his thoughts, and when it's impossible, he decides the safest option is to escape before things get any worse. But when he takes a step to escape, Mizuki blocks his path, refusing to let him leave. That's when her towel loosens, slips from her chest to the floor, revealing what her mama gave her and leaving her totally embarrassed. She quickly tries to use her hand to cover her plots, but in the process, she loses consciousness and faints. A while later, Kazuma and Mizuki sit in the living room in complete silence, the tension between them heavy enough to feel suffocating. Earlier, when Mizuki fainted near the bathroom, Kazuma somehow managed to gather the courage to carry her back to the couch, even though the sensation of her soft body nearly drove him mad. Trying to break the silence, both of them speak at the same time, which only makes things even more awkward. Kazuma quickly apologizes and asks Mizuki to go first, but she shyly refuses, insisting that he should speak instead. Kazuma agrees and nervously says he wants to talk about what happened earlier. He awkwardly assures her that he didn't really see anything, hoping to ease her embarrassment. Instead, Mizuki catches him completely off guard by admitting that she doesn't actually hate what happened. She explains that while she did feel embarrassed, the fact that it was him makes it less uncomfortable for her. Kazuma is stunned by her honesty. He blushes hard, unable to believe that a pretty chick like Mizuki is very okay with showing a donkey like him her curvy plots. Still, one question keeps bothering him, and he can't help but wonder why Mizuki is willing to go this far for his sake. More than anything, Kazuma wants to know why she would even choose to go out with a creepy, ugly buffoon like him. Mizuki sighs, and with a very serious expression, she tells him that she isn't surprised that he really doesn't remember. She explains that about a year ago, she was almost taken advantage of by a groppy creepy on a train. In the middle of it, someone noticed what was happening and started shouting to draw attention. Those shouts alerted everyone nearby, and before things could get worse, the cops arrived and arrested the jerk who tried to get handsy with her. Mizuki never got the chance to properly thank the person who helped her that day, but she clearly remembers his voice. When she first met Kazuma at school and heard him speak, she immediately recognized it. She knew he was the one who had raised the alarm on the train. At first, all she wanted was to thank him for what he did. But she was shocked when she realized that Kazuma didn't recognize her at all, and from that day on, she says, she couldn't stop thinking about him. Mizuki hesitates as if she's about to say something more, but then she pauses and instead asks Kazuma a question of her own. She wants to know why he chose to go out with her. Kazuma freezes on the spot when he hears this question. Kazuma tries to say something, but his mouth feels too heavy to form a single word. But deep down, he knows exactly why he agreed to date Mizuki, and it's simply because she's cute. But saying that out loud would make him sound like a shallow simp who'd date any cute girl who confessed to him. So he stays silent, unwilling to reduce his steez, until suddenly the house phone rings and Mizuki goes to pick it up. It's from her mom informing her that she is on her way back, so Mizuki immediately begs Kazuma to leave, apologizing for ending the visit so suddenly, and then asks if he would agree to come again sometime. Kazuma still doesn't say anything, but his expression clearly shows he isn't happy about sneaking out of his girlfriend's house like a criminal. After Mizuki walks him a short distance away from her place, Kazuma finally thanks her for inviting him over. He's just about to answer the question she asked him back inside when they're suddenly interrupted by Ruri, who comes running toward them, wiggling her balloons side to side. For some reason, she looks overly excited to see them together and immediately demands to know why she's been spotting the two of them together so often lately. She casually points out that they must be secretly dating, and Kazuma freezes for a moment at how accurately she guessed it. So while they're walking together, Kazuma relaxes and decides to tell her the truth about his relationship with Mizuki. Ruri is completely taken aback by the revelation that Kazuma actually has a girlfriend, and she immediately starts teasing him about it. At first, she's genuinely excited about the idea of her best friend dating Mizuki, the hottest girl in school. But that excitement quickly turns into interrogation as Ruri turns to Mizuki and asks if she's really aware of what kind of freak Kazuma is. When Mizuki calmly replies that she's fine with his naughty hobbies, Ruri is stunned. She can't believe that someone with such an innocent, beautiful face is into that kind of stuff. Ruri continues to show her excitement, even demanding to know how the whole relationship came about. But all of a sudden, her mood flips, and the whole excitement turns into jealousy as Ruri wants to know what Kazuma really likes about Mizuki. Kazuma stiffens in surprise, realizing the question is almost exactly the same as the one Mizuki asked him earlier back at her house. Deep down, his answer remains the same. He likes Mizuki because she is cute and admirable. But when he still chose silence over answering the question, Ruri, not one to be patient like Mizuki, snaps and starts yelling at him to give her an answer. But Kazuma just tells her to stop being noisy, but it only makes things worse, as this time Ruri starts suspecting that every time Kazuma and Mizuki go to the club room in school, it must be to play his naughty games. That's when Ruri's level of jealousy skyrockets, and she wants to know if Kazuma chose to date Mizuki because he can play his R-rated games with her. Kazuma immediately denies it, making it clear that's not the reason. Still, Ruri refuses to drop the issue. She presses him further, asking if things would have been different if she had told him earlier that she was willing to play those freaky games with him too. This question hits Kazuma straight in the chest since it's way too serious for his already fragile mental state. But when he tries to respond to her question, he suddenly gets a call from Mizuki and Ruri. Noticing this, immediately takes advantage of the opportunity to get out of the conversation by apologizing and then takes off running. Now alone, Kazuma answers Mizuki's call, asking why she is suddenly calling when they just departed not too long ago. Mizuki reminds him of the upcoming long holiday and then asks if he has already made any plans. Before Kazuma can properly respond, Mizuki hurriedly adds that she was hoping they could meet during the holidays if he's free. Kazuma pauses for a moment to think, and when he hesitates, saying he might be a little bit busy, Mizuki immediately interrupts him before he can finish. She apologizes for even bringing it up and in a sad tone says that it's not important anyway since the idea was just for her own selfish reasons. Right after that, she ends the call. Later that day at home, Kazuma sits alone staring at his phone. Mizuki has sent him another message about the holiday, politely asking what his plans are and whether they could meet, even if only for a short while. But what bothers him isn't the question itself, but the tone. The message feels oddly formal and distant, like she's carefully choosing every word. As Kazuma rereads it over and over, he starts to notice just how different it sounds compared to how she usually talks to him. At the same time, images of Mizuki's face keep flashing through his mind, one after another without stopping. He remembers her calm expression, her awkward curiosity, and the way she tried to understand things she clearly struggled with. Slowly, it hits him that behind that cold, composed image, Mizuki actually has a lot of emotions she never shows. Because of that realization, guilt starts creeping in when Kazuma remembers the kind of eroge he brought that day. Having experienced such a horrible incident on the train, Kazuma feels it was totally insensitive for him to have played an eroge game with Mizuki that involved plot developments on the train. He hates himself as he feels like the worst kind of idiot. While cursing himself, Kazuma recalls the question Mizuki asked him back at her place about why he chose to go out with her. After everything that's happened, he starts to doubt his original answer. For a brief moment, he wonders if the real reason he agreed to date Mizuki was simply because he finally found someone willing to play eroge games with him. Almost immediately, he rejects the thought. He knows deep down that his feelings can't be that shallow. Still unable to come up with an answer he truly believes, Kazuma lets out a frustrated sigh. That sigh doesn't go unnoticed as Enki hears it from across the house and rushes over, asking what's wrong. She gently tells him to open up and confide in her, and her sudden concern completely catches Kazuma off guard. But just as he's about to speak, however, Enki's stomach growls loudly like that of a hungry beast, breaking the moment. Embarrassed, Enki then suggests they talk while eating instead. Kazuma reluctantly agrees, and as they eat together, Enki listens closely to everything weighing on his mind. After hearing him out, Enki starts explaining things in her own blunt way. She tells him that his relationship problem reminds her of an eroge story she read a long time ago, one about a protagonist and his childhood friend. And after countless events and misunderstandings, the protagonist eventually ends up dating that childhood friend. Enki explains that the story she mentioned was a difficult one, where the female lead kept giving the protagonist the cold shoulder all the way to the end, no matter what choices he made. Hearing this, Kazuma immediately jumps to the wrong conclusion, thinking that it means no matter how hard he tries, his relationship with Mizuki is already doomed. Frustrated, he lets out a heavy breath and says it was a mistake for him to ever suggest playing eroge together with Mizuki. Enki is stunned by how quickly Kazuma's dull brain completely misunderstands her point, but Kazuma keeps spiraling anyway. He admits that he's starting to understand why so many people hate eroge games, especially the darker ones where female characters are forcibly taken advantage of. That's when Enki finally snaps. She loses her temper and slaps Kazuma across the face, clearly fed up with him blaming games instead of himself. Kazuma clutches his stinging cheek in shock, but Enki doesn't hold back. She calls him an idiot and bluntly tells him that fictional stories don't hurt people, real humans do. She reminds him of the excitement he felt the first time he ever played an eroge game, and then asks him if he honestly thinks he would have been better off if he had never played them at all. That question hits Kazuma hard, forcing him to stop spiraling and actually think. Now calmer, he realizes he never treated eroge as meaningless trash in the first place. To him, they were worlds filled with characters, emotions, and experiences that mattered deeply, worlds that genuinely excited him and gave him something to hold on to. Still, Kazuma clenches his fist and asks Enki something that's been weighing heavily on him. If he tells Mizuki that he likes games where female characters are taken advantage of, wouldn't that make him no different from the creep on the train who left such a deep scar in her heart? Enki doesn't answer right away. Instead, she quietly takes his hands and presses one of his eroge games into them. Then she turns and walks out of the room, saying that it's a question not even she can answer for him, and that he'll have to figure it out on his own. Left alone, Kazuma stares at the box filled with his eroge games and realizes that somehow, playing them had brought light into what was once a miserable life. He pulls out one of the discs, thinking about how eroge games have almost become a kind of guidebook for him, shaping how he understands stories, emotions, and choices. As Kazuma inserts the disc into his computer, he tells himself that maybe he'll find the answers he's been searching for while playing. But just before starting, his thoughts drift to all the times Mizuki sat beside him, playing those same games together. He pauses, wondering what must have been going through her mind each time she played along with him. As the night drags on, Kazuma's thoughts drift back to a memory from his old school. He remembers a quiet girl who was always alone, avoided by everyone else in class. Rumors had spread that her father was an eroge scenario writer. Back then, Kazuma and his classmates didn't even really understand what eroge was, yet fear and ignorance were enough for everyone to judge her and keep their distance. Despite being avoided, the girl always seemed full of life. That curiosity stayed with Kazuma, and one day he worked up the nerve to talk to her. Awkwardly, he told her that he wanted to try out this so-called eroge game. The girl looked surprised at first, but she didn't say much. Several weeks later, Kazuma found a tightly sealed box under his desk. Inside, it was his very first eroge game, which he believed was her quiet answer to him. After that, though, he never saw her again, and by the second semester, she had already transferred to another school. Much later, after locking himself indoors for 3 straight days, Kazuma finally admits something to himself. He genuinely loves this specific, messed-up genre of eroge, even while fully understanding that fiction and reality are 2 completely different things. Back in the present, Kazuma knows for sure that he never wants anything cruel like those game scenarios to happen in real life, especially not to Mizuki. Just the thought of it makes him uncomfortable. Even so, after reaching that conclusion, he realizes that what he wants most is to treat Mizuki with the same care and importance she's always shown him, because that matters more than anything else. Still, even with that answer, he gets stuck again, unsure how he's supposed to act on those feelings without messing everything up like he usually does. Then, just as his thoughts spiral too far, he realizes he forgot to save his game, which forces him to restart from the beginning, and somehow that stupid mistake snaps something into place in his head. As he clicks through the opening menus again, Kazuma realizes this entire situation mirrors the game itself, where progress only happens when he chooses to face things head-on instead of freezing. Very early the next morning, Kazuma texts Mizuki, thanking her for the message she sent to him the previous day, asking that they meet. He tells her that he actually would want them to meet that day at the usual spot, and then asks that she replies his message when she is free. But just in a few seconds, Kazuma gets an instant reply from Mizuki saying she is free and would definitely meet him that day. Shocked by how fast she replies, Kazuma instantly panics but still messages back that he will head over right away. Meanwhile, Mizuki moves quickly through the city, her hair flowing as she heads to the meeting place, clearly nervous but overly excited to meet with Kazuma. Not long after, they both meet at the usual spot, and Kazuma immediately apologizes for calling her out so suddenly. But Mizuki tells him it's fine since she was the one who wanted them to meet in the first place. With a shy but sad expression on her face, she also admits that when she had received Kazuma's message asking that they meet that day, she felt more relieved than anything. She confessed that initially she had thought that Kazuma had no intention of ever meeting her ever again. Overwhelmed by guilt, Kazuma immediately apologizes for making her feel that way and then suddenly asks that she go out on a date with him that very moment. Mizuki, not expecting such a request, starts to blush hard, and for a brief moment she has no word to explain the feeling she is feeling inside. But after a few moments she quietly agrees and asks that they start going. Not long after, they stop at the same cafe Mizuki had always been eyeing, where Kazuma awkwardly orders the shop's monthly special, while the elderly owner happily explains it in detail, clearly proud of his work. Meanwhile, Mizuki is completely overwhelmed with emotions and asks Kazuma why he brought her to the cafe. With a flustered face, she also asks Kazuma if he had always known that she wanted to eat in the cafe. Kazuma smiles, a little embarrassed by what he wants to say next, and then explains that he had always caught her looking at the blackboard whenever they pass by the shop. He blushes a little, and then reminds her that he knew this because he is her boyfriend, of course. Mizuki is caught off guard by this statement. She blushes hard and chooses to remain silent, leaving Kazuma confused by her reaction. When the massive stack of pancakes arrives, Kazuma immediately regrets his life choices as he is horrified, wondering if a human can actually even finish it. But Mizuki is already smiling like an evil lord who just got her hand on a machine that can bring about world destruction. She confirms again from Kazuma if she can actually dig in, and after getting the confirmation she needs, Mizuki immediately cuts a massive slice of the pancake for herself, and in one swoop, she takes it in her mouth. The taste of the delicious pancake sends her soul straight to heaven. But Kazuma is still shocked at how much of a foodie Mikasa actually is, and loudly admits that she is amazing. Mikasa gets embarrassed by this comment, feeling like he is actually insulting her elephant appetite rather than actually complimenting her. But Kazuma immediately clarifies that he didn't actually mean she is glutton or anything like that, and then desperately explains that he actually kind of likes it and finds it cute. With that out of the way, Mikasa then invites Kazuma to eat the pancakes with her. But Kazuma is horrified by the size of the pancakes, and when he forces himself to eat, he suddenly passes out. When Kazuma wakes, he finds himself lying on Mizuki's soft laps, which instantly sends his brain into full meltdown mode. Kazuma immediately stands from her laps, apologizing non-stop while explaining that his stomach feels bad because he barely slept at all. But Mizuki pulls out her handkerchief and gently starts to wipe off the sweat on his face and is genuinely concerned about him for not having enough sleep the night before. She even points out that he even has dark circles under his eyes, which makes Kazuma feel both embarrassed and strangely cared for at the same time. She then tells him that he should not have forced himself to eat so much, especially when he was already exhausted. Kazuma agrees with her, but then with a heavy chest, he admits that he only wanted to know the kind of things that are important to her, leaving Mizuki completely surprised. Grateful, she then thanks him for the date, and Kazuma replies that it's no problem at all since he is happy that she is having fun. After the meal, Kazuma and Mizuki leaves TH Cafe and heads outside. There they sit on a bench, and Kazuma finally decides to tell Mizuki everything that has been bothering him. When Mizuki curiously asks what the problem is, Kazuma suddenly lowers his head and blurts out a full apology, saying he is sorry for everything he has done. Mizuki is caught off guard by his sudden apology. When she asks what he is apologizing for, Kazuma admits that making her play those eroge games must have been difficult, especially knowing the horrible things she went through in the past with the whole train incident. Kazuma explains that while those games are just fiction to him, he failed to notice the unpleasant feelings they might have caused her. Still struggling to find the right words, Kazuma admits that he never wants anyone, especially Mizuki, to experience something that painful again. Even though he is not fully sure of himself yet, he explains that eroge and fantasies exist separately from reality in his mind, and he wants to keep it that way. After listening quietly, Mizuki finally responds, saying she understands why Kazuma thinks that way, and she admits that playing the games did bring back some uncomfortable memories, but only faintly. However, she calmly adds that she does not have bad feelings toward the games themselves, and that remembering things does not mean she is suffering now. She tells him that she would like to play more games with him next time, and even though she had some major failures, she will work even harder to get better. Hearing this, Kazuma freezes for a second and then asks Mizuki if she is truly happy playing errand. Mizuki is surprised by the question, but Kazuma encourages her to speak freely. Mizuki then shyly admits that as long playing the game means she can be together with Kazuma, she is okay with it. But Kazuma bluntly tells her that isn't the answer he was expecting. He explains that because he loved errand, that's why he has always wanted to make her enjoy and love errand as well. Kazuma further explains honestly that errand are interesting to him not just because of the adult scenes, but because they feel like complete worlds filled with stories, choices, and emotions, all packed into one experience that no other medium can really replicate. He goes on about how errand games give a sense of freedom, creativity, and uniqueness, even if he knows he cannot properly put that beauty into words for Mizuki. After the explanation, Kazuma admits that it's how he feels about errand, and then tells Mizuki that the only reason she agreed to play errand with him is because she likes him. He admits that he is genuinely happy about it, but then he bluntly admits that errand isn't that sort of thing for him. For him, Kazuma explains that both the storylines in errand games and its world have a life of their own, and it's a complete waste for Mizuki to just focus on the errand scene of the game alone. Mizuki is taken aback by how firmly Kazuma is reacting, since she hasn't seen this side of him. She apologizes, but Kazuma interrupts her apology, admitting that he has been doing the exact same thing to her, focusing only on what he wanted instead of who she actually is. Kazuma explains that he was so happy when she asked him out that he completely overlooked her. Kazuma compares relationships to errand in a painfully sincere way, saying that if a person skipped the beginning and do not start properly from zero, then they can never truly love the other person. That said, Kazuma apologizes again, and then suddenly asks that they break up. He feels that from the day Mizuki confessed to him, he had rushed and skipped some things due to his overjoy. But in order to conquer Mizuki and truly make her fall in love with him, Kazuma realized that he has to retrace his steps. He explains that his wish is for them to break up and start all over again from the very beginning. Even though Mizuki was the one who had confessed to him and have done so many freaky things for his sake, Kazuma tells her that it would be selfish for him to continue the relationship any longer. With Mizuki just standing there, trembling and clutching her jacket nervously, but in Kazuma's head he realizes that if he truly wants her to act like a heroine, then he needs to cherish her with everything he has, which means he has to become the protagonist. With a trembling voice, Mizuki finally speaks up, saying she wants them to still be very good friends, and as she speaks, tears drops from her eyes. But in response, Kazuma apologizes again for all the selfish things he said before, while admitting he regrets letting his own feelings twist the situation this badly. He bows his head and then tells her that he's ready to accept any blame, hatred, or disgust she feels toward him because he believes he deserves all of it. But Mizuki assures him that she understands everything he has been saying, and then she asks him to make her a promise. With that, the emotional roller coaster comes to an end, with Kazuma and Mizuki now back to being normal classmates. The next morning at home, Enki casually shows up wearing an apron and acting far too cheerful as she serves Kazuma breakfast. Kazuma accepts the food and starts eating, but the worry on his face is obvious. He brings up Mizuki and tells Enki that he finally had a chance to talk things out with her. Enki instantly brightens at the news and eagerly asks if they managed to resolve everything smoothly. But to her shock, Kazuma drops a bombshell, telling her that he and Mizuki are no longer together, and before Enki can ask anything else, Kazuma grabs his things and leaves for school. On the way to school, Kazuma feels drained and miserable, weighed down by everything happening in his life. But the moment he enters the classroom, the first person he sees is Mizuki. She quietly greets him, still clearly carrying the weight of their sudden breakup. Kazuma returns the greeting, and that's when he notices the club enrollment form in her hands. When he asks if she's planning to join a club, Mizuki tells him she wants to officially join his errand club, and then explains that she wants to try playing errand games again. Kazuma is stunned by her answer, but Mizuki quickly adds that this time, she wants to play them properly. When Kazuma excitedly asks what errand game she wants to play and what the title is, Mizuki awkwardly admits that she didn't actually see the name. She explains that she only noticed a fish on the cover, and being the hungry buffalo that she is, she decided to pick that one. That makes Kazuma smile for the first time in a while, and he admits that he's genuinely happy she's interested in errand at all. After that, the two of them stand there facing each other, awkward but honest, and the atmosphere feels strangely familiar, like they're reenacting the very beginning of everything. The silence is finally broken when Mizuki gathers her courage, steps forward, and says there's something important she wants to tell him, which makes Kazuma immediately tenses up. Then, without hesitation, Mizuki says she wants to be his girlfriend again. Caught completely off guard by the second confession, Kazuma nervously thanks her and promises that this time he'll become a worthy boyfriend, someone who won't hide behind excuses or fantasies anymore. He then bows deeply and asks her once again to be his girlfriend, not out of impulse or desperation, but with clear intent and resolve. Mizuki freezes in shock, clearly not expecting things to turn out this way. She just stands there in silence, leaving Kazuma confused and wondering why she isn't saying anything. In truth, Mizuki is simply too flustered to speak. When she can't handle the tension anymore, she quickly ducks behind her desk, hides her face, and nervously asks Kazuma to repeat what he just said. She insists she might have misheard him and begs him to say it again. Kazuma is completely thrown off by her reaction, but after barely pulling himself together, he finally forces the words out properly. He tells her straight up that what he's trying to say is that he wants her to go out with him again. Hearing the confession a second time, Mizuki starts trembling behind the desk. Kazuma then steps closer and repeats it slowly and clearly, word for word, making sure that even a deaf man can hear him. He tells her that he wants her to be his girlfriend. An awkward silence follows immediately, and Mizuki suddenly admits that she feels really anxious, because hearing his confession brings back all those bottled-up emotions she never really let go of. She asks Kazuma if he really wants to go out with her, and Kazuma, blushing like a fool in love, confirms it without mincing words. His words excite Mizuki as she suddenly throws herself at him, hugging him tightly, and then thank him with a teary eyes, making it painfully clear how much those words meant to her. Holding on to him, Mizuki promises that she'll try her best this time, so she can become his most important person. As they stay wrapped in each other's arms, Mizuki quietly accepts his feelings once again, telling him that she's placing herself in his care. What's next for Kazuma and his cosplaying girlfriend? Comment MYEROG girlfriend if you're eager to find out in our part 2. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. As always, thanks for watching.